G'day guys and welcome, my name's Michael and I am the Dead Aussie Gamer, here to share with you my tips, tricks, ideas and strategies for playing and running tabletop role-playing games. Now today, we live in a golden age of role-playing where never before have we been more connected as a community. Social media platforms like Facebook, Discord, YouTube and Twitch have given us more access to games and information than ever before. But what impact has this had on our standards for role-playing games? Now today's topic is one I've dusted off from the Reddit forums, and I want to be throwing my dice into the proverbial dice tray over this discussion regarding Game Master standards. Now I'm sure by now many of you are aware of shows like Critical Role and Fantasy High, where professional performers engage in some good, wholesome role-playing fun. And with its popularity, there have been a score of new faces and people looking to get in on that action as well. But not all these newcomers understand the time, effort, and responsibility that goes into the mantle of a GM. Many of these shows are filmed at a studio and in very precise situations and do not show exactly how much time, effort, and work goes into the game master or even the players as they prepare for their own adventures. With this, many players have begun expecting the GMs to be of the same caliber of professional entertainers such as Matt Mercer and, well, look, I can tell you, at least from my personal experience, many GMs and many players like myself have some form of social anxiety. The idea of being compared to such confident and accomplished people can often create much tension at a table, even breaking some apart. This is a major impact that some GMs and players are having across the world, and well, I think it might be worth having a discussion about reasonable standards and maybe seeing if we can change a few minds and stop having people swing for the fences when it comes to defining their standards of roleplay. So the first thing I want to talk about is the difference between a hobbyist and a professional. Now look, both of these people know how to roleplay. Both of these people understand the nuances of storytelling and the rules of the game in which they engage. But the biggest difference that they have is time. Now a hobbyist might have a family, might have a job that doesn't necessarily afford them much time to prepare for a game. They may not have experience in stage or screen, being actors and thespians. Whereas a professional generally does. A professional role player, whether it be a role player like myself who does work through the local youth center, or a professional who gives advice on the nuances of gaming like Guy from How to Be a Great Game Master, or of course one of those random crazy people who work for Perception Check on Perception Studios, who have learnt not only the skilled art of puppeteering but also some very crude humor. These people have dedicated time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears into their craft. And when it comes to preparing for games, well, they have the time because it is their source of income. That is why they can dedicate so much to it. It's like with most skills. The more time you spend on it, the more practice you have, in time, the better you become at it. These people here in the professional category simply have the means of supporting themselves while dedicating their time to their craft. It is not reasonable to expect a hobbyist to be of the same caliber as a professional game master on the simple presence that they might not have the same amount of time. Instead, what I highly recommend for any player with a hobbyist GM, or with a standard GM, is to remember that time is such a precious thing. If your GM comes to a game and they may not have enough stuff prepped, don't ostracize them for it. Don't sit there and say, well, I can't believe you did this for this game because these guys seem to have a perfectly fine time preparing for their game. Instead of that, appreciate your GM. Thank them for all the effort that they do put in. And if there isn't any effort in, assume that there is a good reason. And instead, take some of that burden from your GM and make sure that you liven up your roleplay, that you engage in these things, and that you help inspire and lead your game master on the narrative with your character, as well as the other players. Don't rely on everything being hand-served to you on a silver platter. Because you know what? At the end of the day, the storytelling experience swings that door both ways. And speaking of swinging that door both ways, let's now talk about professional entertainers and players. As much as I'd like to say, oh, well, it's the professional game masters that are setting this standard, and oh, it is characters like Matt Mercer who creates this whole thing. It's rubbish. Don't buy that for a second. And by the way, if anyone is out there blaming professional game masters for these standards, it's actually the players. And I want to sneak this in. The players, being professional actors and entertainers, make the game seem fun. They're in the seat you want to be in. And of course, they make that look awesome. That's why it looks awesome. That's why these games look so incredible and why we want to be a part of it. I will admit, hands down, that I was one of these suckers. Because when I watched the Bacon Battalion that Guy ran many, many years ago, all I thought to myself was, damn, I want to be on that table. I want to be that guy. Thankfully, it actually happened for me, which was awesome. But, you know, sometimes you got to remember that the game itself needs to be the best that it can be and not the best that someone else could make it, you know? If you go into that, into a scenario as a player, you know, expecting that, well, it's not really the game master at that point, it's you as the player. So, a professional player, a professional entertainer, is someone who has studied entertaining, studied that art of creating this image of fun, joy, happiness. Whereas you as a player, when you sit down for a table, it's a relaxation thing. We're there to have fun. We're there to unwind, to let all those tension fall away from our bodies. That's what being a player is all about, and that's what you should be focused on. Not about whether or not you can put on a good accent, or whether or not you can be the most vibrant person and keep the energy levels at 110% for 3 straight hours. I can tell you firsthand, when I play on any show, really, when I'm playing, I am exhausted at the end of the show. I feel a level of happiness, of course, because I had a great game, but I feel fatigued. I've just put in so much effort into being the most entertaining character that I could be, that by the end of it, I'm just like, oh man, you know, if I get invited to do another game, it'd be like me leaning back in a chair, just being like, okay, cool, what are we doing? Where are we going? All right, cool. I smack the guy. I hit him in the face. You know, I won't even bother going into that next level stuff that I do when I'm on a show. That's what I think players should be expected to do. Players should be expected to just be there to have fun, to be there and enjoy themselves with the other players, but not at the expense of anyone. Now, another thing I could really use as a metaphor for this is trying to learn how to roleplay from these professional shows, unless, of course, we're talking the advice shows, because they're obviously keyed into giving you advice. So I'm talking about like watching live plays and stuff like that. It's like trying to learn sex from watching porn. Sure, you could do it, but it's a kind of unrealistic expectation of what's going to happen, you know? It's entertainment. It's an entirely different medium. And it's, you know, like being able to last 3-4 hours in a sexual congress, for example, and not realizing that the scene is actually cut 4 or 5 different times, and that, you know, they've actually done it a few times before they've got the 1 hour bit of footage. You know, like things like that are exactly what people don't realize happens on these shows. So don't forget that. Don't forget that, you know, these professionals are there, not only trained in the game itself, but, you know, how to manage and live in this world of lights and sparkles and videos and all that. So keep that in mind. What are some realistic expectations? What should we expect from our game master and player? Firstly, from my game master, I always expect that my game master, when they say I am running a table, it means that that's what they want to do. You want to run a table. I've had experiences where I've had a game master round robin where, you know, the GM changes based on whoever's up to something in a campaign. And we had game masters who did not want a game master. When we got to that point, the games weren't fun. They weren't prepping for their games. They didn't really care what we did. They just wanted to get through their turn. My expectation is if you want a GM. If you don't want to, then be open with it. Communicate that with your players. Say, look guys, I'm just not feeling it. I don't really want a GM today. The thing is if you do that before your game, like don't do it like as your game's about to start, your players will respect that. And most of the time your players might even get to that point where they stand up and say, hey, well, you know what? I've got a cool story that I'd love to tell. And it opens that really great dialogue that you want to have. As I mentioned before, time is so precious. And sometimes we want to run games that we just don't have time to run. And that could be fine as well. As a player, your duty there is to three things. Is to engage the world, to engage your other players, and to have fun with your other players and GM. Not at their expense, I hate it when a player shows up with 18 pages of backstory and uses every single moment to make a scene about themselves. That's not what the game's about. The game's about everyone. The game's about having fun with everyone. And that's what you should be trying to do. And definitely do not enforce standards on other people, especially when they're standards you can't live by. If you cannot do a million different voices and you have the voice of Matt Mercer and you have the mental prowess of a professional advice columnist, then you shouldn't really be holding those standards to your GM. Instead, hold those standards to yourself. For me, whenever I look at my GMing style, I know that I GM very differently to a lot of people who are on YouTube and on Twitch. But I'd never take it upon myself to say, I want to be like them. I don't want to be like Matt Mercer. I don't want to be like Cody Lewis or Michael Hunt or Guy Slander. I don't want to do any of that. I want to be me. I want to be the best me that I could be. And the best me that I can be is someone who steals from all these guys, right? The thing is when you watch games, when you see how people play, that is just experience. That is things that you can take, both as a player and a GM, and take them to make your own style of gaming. Take your own style of roleplay and run with it. Make it something fun. Make it something great. And always, always, always remember that your path is defined by two things. The fact that behind you is a game that is worse than the one in front of you. You will always do better than you have in the past. That's the nature of learning. You will always look back and you'll think, oh my God, I had a really terrible game. Or you'll even look back and say, my game is going to pot. But always push yourself and say, you know what? Tomorrow will be better. My next one will be even greater because I have now learned the lessons from this game. So that's my thoughts on this whole GM standards thing. Look, this topic is an old hat one, and the only reason I bring it up is because it was mentioned a couple of times on my Discord, and I wanted to reach out and sort of make mention of this whole concept. The fact that it's called the Matt Mercer effect offends me, personally, because honestly, as much as I'd like to say I'm incredibly jealous of Matt Mercer, due to his appearance, because he's such a damn attractive bastard. Nothing to do with his GMing. I'm just sitting here thinking, like, how dare you be so good looking and be so talented as a GM? What am I supposed to do with this? I think the Matt Mercer effect is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's not his fault. It's not even remotely something that he does. Matt Mercer is one of the most assertive, passionate people trying to push the hobby forward into an entirely new era. And I mean, I think he said it best when he actually responded to this Reddit channel. He said, consolidate your style and wishes with those of the other players and GM. And somewhere in that unique mix, you will find your table's special style of storytelling. Now, this is not the words of someone who is trying to keep the community down. This is not someone who is trying to show off how amazing they are. This is someone who genuinely loves the hobby, and I think we need to move past it. I think we need to move to a new thing. So, as a sign of my solidarity, I am starting a new hashtag called #MyGM, where I want everyone who can to join me in this hashtag and say some piece of Game Master prep work, something behind the scenes, some part of the setup of making a role-playing game happen that you can share under this hashtag. So I've put one out already, and I want to read it out for you guys because honestly, this one particularly just took me away. It reminded me of an old game that I played. It was run by the lovely woman who I am still with now. She's currently my partner, and she actually got me into role-playing. One of the most amazing moments I witnessed was my GM creating an awesome miniature-scaled paper model of a series of rune stones, each of which with a rotating paper panel that had insanely tiny runes on it. Lining up these runes would then open a portal into the world of the Fae, and the effort that went into that was something that I will always appreciate. That is what I want to be sharing under this hashtag. If you guys have stories like this, if you guys have things that your GMs went above and beyond, or hell, even just did something despite great adversity, share that in hashtag MyGM, and let's bond over these people who have done this stuff behind the scenes, so that we can tell them you're appreciated. You know, that even no matter how much we play, no matter how many times we take option Z when you prep for options A through to F, we appreciate you guys. All right, thank you guys so much for joining us for this video. I know it's a little bit heavy towards the end, but again, thank you for supporting us, and thank you for supporting the channel. If you can, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Go check us out on all our different social medias. If you want to join us on Discord, the Discord link will be down below. It's a really great way to come and chat with me, and if you've got any topics that you'd like to discuss, such as this one, of course, then head on over there, because any kind of suggestions I get inspire the videos that I make for this channel. So there you go. If you want to support us, then head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/deadaussiegamer. And yeah, even the littlest donations really go towards making all of this stuff possible. Oh, and the last bit of news while we're on this particular topic, I did indeed get confirmation that I will be attending Gen Con this year, and I will be hosting a panel, a seminar sort of thing, covering how to become a professional game master. And this is, of course, how to make money as a game master specifically, not how to be a excellent game master, but a paid one. So yeah, if I see you in Indianapolis in August this year, then definitely say hi. Come give us a hug. I'm a big hugger. I like hugs. So there you go. All right, guys. Till next time, make sure that you and yours game hard or die trying. Bye, guys.